Take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Hey all, do you know what? It's been a while since I've been on radio. This is Dave.
And Mickey's
Shiny Side Out. This is WZZR, and we're coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. And do you know what? It's home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations, and you'll find those in the chat room right now, and that's where I am. I just said, are you ready for Shiny Side Out? So jump in the chat room, and you can talk to us while we're on air, which is actually pretty cool. You don't get that anywhere else. Now, it's also a great place to get your merch. So do go to freedomslips.com and check out the merch because, you know, donating to the station is easier when you just buy something from the station. That's a donation too. Some of the profit goes towards the station to make it run. The rest just goes for the merch. Anywho, this is, believe it or not, show 540. Hello?
40 into 500.
There we go. Did you know, and I don't know if you did, but, you know, we do say this for all 540 shows, and that is that you can catch us online, on air, or anywhere. See how I changed it? You can just listen to us on your smart device. I mean, almost everyone that I know carries around a phone that is a smart device, not just a phone like the old Nokia candlestick or the flip phone. No, this is a smartphone. You got the internet in your hand. I mean, the whole of what was worthwhile putting onto the internet is on there, redacted, of course. And you can carry that around. You can listen from anywhere you are on the planet, even in the ISS. You could listen to it. Or if you couldn't be bothered, you can just sit at home with a Grace tabletop digital radio, and you can tune in that way too. And I'd say Solaris had a great show again, and you won't believe who she had. She had Tron on, and that was the special guest star tonight, and they were discussing advanced computers and extraterrestrials. Both of those topics are my favorites. Now, it doesn't cost anything to currently get access to the archives, because you could be disappointed to hear that she has such great guests. And we talk about this every single week, and our love goes out to you, Solaris. Always a great show, and to have to follow after her is amazing. It's not an easy gig. So she always has great guests, great interviews. She has a great variety of shows and topics that she talks about. But, you know, don't be disappointed, because you can just jump in the archives and download the MP3s. You can do that for our shows, for her shows, for all of her shows for that matter. And I do request that you, if you like anything at all, donate to the station. Also, you could just become a Patreon, and that's kind of easier. And I don't know the minimum payment. Sometimes it's as low as $1. It could be $5 a month or something like that. So,
Dollar! I buy that for $1.
Yeah, I'd buy that. How much just for her ass?
$1.
That was, I believe that was from Cannibal Run.
$1.
Oh my goodness me. Is there a cross line? I think it must be a cross line.
Who's that, dude?
You know what? Because Mackie and I live in Australia, we are connected to our country. We're connected in a way that is deeper than just words. And in our welcome to country proposition here, I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. And Mackie, where are you at the moment?
Daruk country.
Daruk country. And Mackie and I both have we hold in the highest esteem the respect of the elders past, present and future. Because you know what? They didn't rape and pillage and dig up and sell the dirt from the country to anyone else. They kept it the way it was, and that was what was supposed to be. All of native people around the world tell of stories where they were requested to look after the land and not eat all the animals. You know, farm them responsibly.
You know, when you say that, I've got this picture of Homer Simpson in my head under the sea. eating
Under
everything.
the sea.
Under the sea.
Oh, so by the way, everyone, I had COVID. Oh, family had COVID, and it's not a good thing. And if I talk for too long, I end up coughing madly. So I'll pass it to my esteemed colleague, and I'll be on mute as best as I can. But as unprofessional as it is for me to cough, sometimes I can't reach for the button quick enough and able to mute myself. So apologies in advance. So I don't know where to start today on all of this crazy going on in the world. What's probably the craziest? I'm just going to start with the Biden economic discussion that they had, talking about. There was a briefing on the lowering of gas prices. Gas meaning petroleum or gasoline, and I thought it extraordinary to suggest that that the gas prices have already fallen so significantly that it's something like 60 cents a gallon cheaper. Here in Australia, yeah, we've seen some falls, but we also reduced our taxes, which on the fuel, which ends up being a per mile tax on driving your motor vehicle. That's really what it is. And it's relatively larger for larger engines and smaller for smaller engines, only on the amount of fuel that you use to travel per mile. So it's a mileage tax, and it's kind of, secret because we don't really realize it's there. But one thing that alerted me to this video, now I saw a couple of tweets on it, and the tweets were kind of all over the place, but none of them, there was no sniper with a target on this story. And I thought that the most important thing was that Biden sounded the most coherent he's ever been since he's been in power. And that got me wondering. Now, one of the good friends of the show threw me a couple of these little grabs, saying that when you zoom in on the video of Biden, it looks like it's been filmed on a webcam that's only 720 DPI. It's really super low res. Now, I would imagine he'd have at least 4K camera or something. Yeah. But it was so appalling that you could disguise a deep fake really well. You could have a sound alike, because no deep fake is good unless you've got a sound alike. Like we've seen the Tom Cruise deep fakes, which you cannot tell deep fakes. Like there's one of him crouching down and talking to camera in a park. He's outdoors, the sun and all of those extra things that it adds. The complexity of, non-controlled lighting, for instance. Depth of skin, the glow beneath the skin, all of that is captured perfectly because it isn't Tom Cruise. It is in that shot. There's a fellow that is a likeness and does a perfect voice rendition. So adding the two together, deep fake plus the great voice, and you don't question it. However, his coherence is so extraordinary. It's like it's a different person. Given all the gaffes that he's done previously, where he described himself as his own wife. I thought I'd get at least a laugh out of you, Mackie, on that one.
I was chuckling.
Oh, you were chuckling on the inside. Yeah, tough crowd.
The thing is, not at all. But, at some point you can say, it's been funny, it's been real, but, really, somebody else now? Step forward and do something about this. Somebody? Anyone? Bueller? Come on. What's going on here? Right?
So I was really concerned. Is this like the movie Sleeper, where the president ends up just being shown in silhouette, sitting in his wheelchair against the sunset, and his faithful companion, the dog, seated next to him as he waves to the camera from some great distance, but is still in silhouette, where the story reveals that he'd been dead for something like 30 years. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Biden's dead. Not saying he's dead. But maybe he's not as well as they're portraying. Or, right? Because I've never heard him gaffless. He's never been gaffless. In that last one where he said, I'm Joe Biden, I'm president of USA, and I'm Joe Biden's wife.
I know, right?
It's like, what? Are you reading the direction again? Are you reading what's inside the square brackets on the auto cue? But this time, no, absolutely not. He's seated, controlled lighting. Think about what this means. All of the press, there's only 4 of them. There's only 4 press in this shot. And I'm not going to play it. But I just thought what was really interesting about this was just how fake can we get?
Yeah.
When the only indicator that it's fake is that he's coherent? Good grief. What has the world come to?
So, he sounds better than he has ever.
Ever. That's, at least since he got into the presidency. So, and
that's true.
What was coming through my mind when I heard all the images, because I've got rather a Simpson-esque way of thinking, and I just pictured Kamala Harris behind the curtain with her little, COVID vial, wiping it on everything. Right? I'm not saying it happened. That's my stupid sense of humor. So, anyway, that was the craziest thing. Everyone brushed over it like the whole thing was authentic, but then no one realized that, hang on a minute, he made sense.
Yeah.
So
why? How is that possible? Yeah.
He fell off the stationary bicycle, Mackie.
Yeah. Well, it happens,
Yeah, it happens, even though you don't have cleats on. Even without cleats, because I used to do. I've done triathlons in the past. Yeah, and cleats can be your worst nightmare.
Oh, they can.
It's like, oh yeah, hang on a minute, and then you fall over.
It happens.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to move on past that one.
Yeah.
And
it's funny though.
Let's alternate.
Oh look, this is a good one. I like it. Simply because, it shines the light on something that's near and dear to my heart, which is our ability to deep fake things. Now, people talk about all the deep faking we can do, and with existing videos and such. Well, the truth is this, everybody: we can deep fake live video, live stream. We don't have to doctor it after the fact.
Yeah.
The computing power and the power does not exist. Oh, Mackie, really? Yeah. No, unfortunately, it's a thing. We can now do that. So it's going to be more and more sophisticated, and you won't be able to tell at all anymore, in fact, what it looks like. So that's a problem. Obviously, it's a problem. To the point where, just like Dave has just described, the dictator that
in this reel, you're going to see my amigo.
This could very well happen now. I mean, Putin might have been dead for 3 years, for all we know. It's just been a deep fake video that has been giving his people instructions, as it were. But I do want to divert slightly from what we just discussed. And look, the whole Biden issue, in my mind, is very simple. Find someone better. Find someone not at death's door. Find someone. And not Trump either. I'm sorry to say. I don't think he's the right guy. He's too self-involved. He's too focused on himself.
It does appear as though he's going to be indicted.
Look, that's the other thing, right?
But
now,
will he be found criminally liable? Right.
Well, that's the problem, right? Now, all these people are saying, see, this is about the 180 or so minutes, the 3 hours where he allegedly was sitting in a private dining room in the White House watching TV and watching what was unfolding, I guess, on Capitol Hill. No, but all these aides, all these people that used to work for him, are all coming forward, giving damning statements. Right? That doesn't help anyone.
Well, they said that the most conversation I've heard from it is that it's collectively, if I bunch it all together like Play-Doh, and that is, or plasticine, right? It is that he didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
He did ask the aides if he could do this and that, and they all denied him access. You remember that social media had already cut him and had a 3 or 4 hour delay on his tweets.
Yeah.
So that he was then incapable of doing this anyway.
Yeah.
So I wonder if any of that will be admitted as evidence, even if he did try, then it would have gone nowhere. Because remember, they disabled his account. So his favorite. I'm resting for 1 minute on the toilet. Time to tweet, right? That's fine. I don't mind that he did that. Probably the most tweeted, president in the history of presidencies. But even if he did try to get a message out, they probably would not have allowed that to get to an audience.
Yeah, but look, we're going to call a spade a spade here, right? Now,
Sure.
I'm not a fan of any politician. I think they should all be lined up and shot. That's my opinion. Not the station, just me.
Not inciting anything to occur,
No.
but that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
I
That's
think
what should
our
happen.
system creates corruption.
I would have been front and center on Bastille Day, running at the Bastille. That would be me.
Get your
No.
popcorn, Mickey. We can sit next to each other and,
No. I would have been in the crowd, running at the Bastille. That's what I would have done
Oh, right.
back in the day. But the point is that I'm not a fan of any politician. Full stop. It's just I think if you are in that business, there's something fundamentally wrong with you. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. What I am saying is this: he did not want to leave the presidency.
That's true.
He was trying to hang on to it with every fiber of his being.
Yes.
Okay, and irrespective of there was election fraud, voter fraud, whatever. That goes too far, and I haven't got the research. I don't know, right? I don't know. But he did say, "Let's march there and let's call for the voting to stop. Let's call on Pence to stop this whole thing." And he pressured him, right? His VP. Into stopping this whole thing so he could remain president. So in my mind, he's not the right guy, right? Biden is not the right guy. None of the people that are visible, right, are the right people, male or female. I don't really care. The problem that we have is with 300 million people, it whittled down to those two. In America, and look,
that shows the
Australia,
flawed system to start with.
Oh, it's completely flawed. I mean, it's just astounding. I mean, any party political system, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was established 100, 150, 200 years ago is no longer relevant. Let me explain.
Yeah.
So these parties came about, obviously, some time ago. In some cases, 100, 120 years and such. I mean, it's been a long time. They were born out of the Industrial Revolution, the labor movement, the union movement, the industrialists trying to hold on to power, fighting off reactionary forces, etc., etc. Look, it was born out of class struggle that was occasioned by the Industrial Revolution. That's what gave birth to our political system today. Okay, very simply put, and it is no longer relevant. These parties have lost their mandate. In Australia, we saw it recently when a lot of people voted independent. And even in what you would call ironclad party-owned seats.
That's right.
In their mind, this is our seat, will be our seat forever. We don't have to spend too much time here, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And to the point where even the former treasurer, Mr. Frydenberg, who is now found a cozy little nest at Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, yeah.
Those parasites, they're never short a beat. And he found a cozy home there, but even he was kicked out. So clearly he was a very prominent politician. I mean, being the treasurer, that's like 2IC, right? Second in charge. And he lost his seat. He lost his seat to an independent. and a lot of this has happened. So
these
people
were
are waking
dyed in
up
the
to this.
wool seats that would never change ever. Yeah.
Correct. And the thing is this: people are concerned with a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, the normal stuff, of course. We're concerned with the economy, we're concerned with peace and stability. But because we've had peace and stability for such a long time, it's not that big a concern because we think it's just going to last forever, which is, of course, complete fallacy. However, there are new things. Like, I mean, look, and we're going to talk about this in a second as well. Climate change, right? People go, "Oh, it's not real." Blah blah. Look, okay, just look. Go to any news source. Go. In fact, call your friends and family that live, hopefully, elsewhere in the world, or travel there yourself. Look at Europe. Look at Northern Africa right now. Look at China. Look at the United States. So look at the Northern Hemisphere. I want to say right now, summer. In fact, the middle of summer. This is the height of summer, July. I used to love having my birthday at the end of this month because it was a summer birthday. Fantastic. We'll talk about it in a second, though. Now,
Goodness me. Well, this is a live stream, and Skype has just decided to cancel itself. So let's see if I can get that back running again. I'm not sure if Meki's still got the station or not.
Weapons as well. But it is in decline as an economic power. And Trump was going to focus inward, which again, not the first time it happened. Woodrow Wilson, President Monroe as well, right? The Monroe Doctrine, America for Americans, etc. So Americans have a tendency to focus inwards. And so, in fact, what has been happening for the last 50 years is a complete anomaly in American foreign policy. America was never the global. I remember the Time magazine cover, Global Corp, right? It never was until after World War II. It started in I want to say in anger. It started probably in the 60s and 70s, right? As a counter movement towards the perceived global communist threat.
Yes.
Right, where America
which became the Cold War. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Which led America to extend much further than it could afford. Because it's expensive, so it was an ideological struggle, which was born out of the industrial stream to own the world. It wasn't really necessarily an American ideal, but there we were anyway. And it's uncharacteristic for America. Has been around. Let's call it 250 years. They call it about 250 years, right? For 200 of those 250 years, America was not interested really to dictate a global affair. Certainly participate in the economy and such, in the global economy, absolutely. Okay, yeah, no worries. But and we need to acknowledge that. And the anomaly that happened after World War II is the extreme involvement of America everywhere, because America is an empire. It's a trading empire more than anything. Trying to secure its markets and meaning it has a lot of product and it wants to sell, which is what happened with Huawei as well. If anybody is curious to understand that whole scenario with Cisco. And anyway, so there we are. And Trump is just doing what presidents before him have done. Yeah, well, look, I'm not really interested in the rest of the world. I don't want these treaties. It's costing us too much money. It's a bad deal for us, and he is right. He's 100% correct. It's a bad deal for America. It really is. Not only is it a bad deal for America, thousands, if not tens of thousands of American young men and women have died defending this empire overseas.
That's right.
But not too many soldiers died on American soil. Really? Right? This is really, these are overseas deployment. And you have to ask yourself, well, why are we there? Well, to secure the markets is really the key answer here. To secure the market. So, but my point is, we need something else, Dave. We need another political system. Okay, we need a political system that is more representative. Number one, of the population today, and number two, the actual issues and challenges we face on a global scale. Because globalism has failed. It's gone. Yep. Globalism as a thing has failed. Capitalism has failed. Communism never really got off the ground.
That's right.
So all these things we've tried over the last 100 years, they haven't really worked out. In some countries, you can say, okay, well, this actually worked and that worked, but these are countries that work because what they're doing was predicated on their culture.
So what, nationalism?
Yeah,
Where,
look,
where
yeah.
everything's owned by the state, or
Yeah, kind of. So look at Switzerland. So Switzerland has been dramatically independent for 500 years.
Mhm.
The Swiss haven't been involved in a single conflict. Not one. Completely independent. Now, you can't actually conquer Switzerland because all they have to do is blow up a couple of bridges and that's it. You're done. Right? You can't. There's no land army that can take Switzerland. Singapore, in a similar fashion, has been a beacon of economic and I guess order, economic growth and order, because it's a one-party system that seems to work for them, right? So I think every nation, Dave, every people needs to figure out what works for them, because democracy is not for everybody. Autocracy is not for everybody.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree. But when you listen to the WEF and the stakeholder economy and the Great Reset, they seem to be pushing an agenda which doesn't match any of those.
Correct.
In fact, it's like a brand new system of governance that they're attempting to bring in.
We are familiar with it because we've read about it.
That's right.
On a global scale. So we've read about Brave New World and we've read about 1984. Now, the two novels are fundamentally different. In Brave New World, all the things that you love make you a slave.
That's right.
In 1984, all the things you hate make you a slave.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really interesting. But we are moving.
That's a good
right.
perspective. I like you've done that.
Yeah, but look, anyway, I do like literary critique. No, but if you look at it, Dave, you're right. So this is something that is coming along, but in its truest form, what the Great Reset promises to be, or seems to be, in the minds of the people that are pushing it, is an autocratic, technocratic welfare state.
Yep.
Completely socialist, not communist, because it's not owned collectively by everybody. It is owned by an elite, but they're providing social services to everybody.
That's right.
And as we discussed at some other point, in my opinion, these social bunkers, which will be, these massive concrete, well, maybe it won't be, maybe it'll be different, but I believe that populations will be concentrated, much more concentrated than they are today. Because it's easier to control, and as people die off, as another thing I think is going to happen, it'll just be easier to just shut down apartments, and scale down the infrastructure. If the infrastructure is too distributed, it's harder. It's just harder. It's not impossible. It's just harder. And that these parasites are all about making it easy for themselves.
Yeah. So I had a great conversation with my father today about the digital currencies. And what the WEF is planning for everybody, and that's to establish a brand new digital currency, a global one. We've had our fun with Bitcoins and all those things. That was Klaus Schwab's actual words. You've had fun with these for a while. We kind of get it, and we think it would be great for everyone to have that. That on its own, I think, is a really important measure of the success of their plan. Because it's the success of how that has been implemented. Because I believe that can't be last. It's got to be somewhere in the middle of the project. Because without that, it's not going to work. So I just don't know how that's going to sweep through like the phoenix and be resurrected as the new way of doing things, or be touted as, or we're going to be crying out for it. Please give us a digital currency, right?
It'll be a solution to a problem, Dave. I think
that's absolutely right.
I think that's what we can.
And we will cry out for it.
Yeah.
Like the Patriot Act. We want to be safe.
Yeah,
I want to take my shoes off every time I go onto a flight now.
Safe up, Lenny.
You'd be lucky to get on a flight because of the COVID. And I wanted to talk about something, Becky. I've got a little thing here about Omicron, and I think it's important to at least talk about it, because there's so many people who say, "Oh, but it's harmless." Well, it's not that harmless. They're talking about 5% of the people who get it. Remember, the Delta was 10% of the people who get it end up being hospitalized. But right now, we're looking at 5%, are hospitalized, and also the longer you have it, the longer the long COVID occurs for. So, and we've got this expiring medication, which is the Paxlovid, which is what I had. They gave it to me because my symptoms were severe. And now it's expiring, so they're trying to give it to everybody who presents with some severe symptoms, which is really interesting. But I got this thing because Omicron started as a derivative. It was a mutation, and it came out of Africa, and it went from BA.1 to BA.2, and then we saw what we now know as BA.3, then 4, then 5, and 5 is now out reproduced and outspread all of the previous versions of the virus. But from Omicron .2, we've now seen a number of variants, and the one that is the most severe of all, because it's kind of like a little hybrid between the Omicron variant and the Delta variant. So it's both upper and lower respiratory, but it's extremely contagious, and that's Omicron .275. They're just calling it 2.75, and that's called Centaurus. And if you see that or hear about it in the news, you've got to know from whence it came. It is Omicron .2, a variant of that. It went through a number of variations, but this is where it's at. And I've got a little slide. I hand you a slide. It looks awful, but just bear with me. So right now, I know I've had it. My family's had it. I think we had 5, like .5, and like the brake fluid that I use in my car, just for the CIA handler who severs my brake lines. Look, I used .5. All right, just letting you know, in case, because it's like $30 a bottle, and just crazy expensive, and it's used for racing. Anyway, so please don't do that again. It's making me broke. So that's really bizarre that this the virus has been allowed to mutate. Because remember, every host has 1 billion new opportunities to mutate into a new variant, and we're not seeing. Okay, what we're not seeing is it go away. And the only way to make it go away is to stop it mutating, to stop it breeding, end the amount of hosts that it is consuming. And that is the only way to get rid of it, because I'm trying to think of a time in the future when it doesn't exist, and it can't. It's always going to be here now.
But it's just like the flu. I mean, that's just never going to happen, right? It's common cold. You can't eradicate these viruses. It's not going to happen. What you can do is we find an equilibrium, like we have found an equilibrium with the common cold, an equilibrium with usually the flu. I mean, less severe. I mean, look, the flu is not a huge killer anymore for us.
No.
And with the SARS-CoV-2, no matter what the variants are that eventually survive, there will be some kind of equilibrium achieved where the virus will continue to spread, but it will not be, I guess. I mean, even now it's not. Actually, it's a very successful virus, Dave, if you think about it.
Oh, it's tremendously successful.
It doesn't kill very many of its hosts.
No.
In relative terms, right? I'm talking relative terms.
Yeah.
It spreads extremely well. It can infect more than once. And look, I think what we're seeing now.
They're talking about a 28-day reinfection rate now.
Correct. Yeah. What we see today, I think that's life now. This is it. it's not going to get any better from the point of view of we're going to get rid of it or we're going to control it more, whatever. We might find better treatment, sure enough. I mean, I think that's definitely on the cards.
Yeah.
I find home remedies are probably good, but I don't think we're ever going to see a situation where it is going to be any better. We'll forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It'll be like the flu.
Okay,
Nobody will have these stats anymore.
Yeah. But my question here is, of those countries that are attempting to eradicate the virus, they may very well have to close their borders entirely to the rest of the planet.
Till the end of time.
Till the end of time. Because look, like the smallpox that we've all carried, and we've have a certain amount of immunity. I'm not saying we're immune to it. I know I've been vaccinated because, I traveled when I was young and we had that smallpox vaccine. And that sort of saves us from a segue to the monkeypox declaration that occurred today from the WHO, because there's 16,500 people in the world now infected with 76 countries with the monkeypox.
Yep.
And it's predominantly spread within a certain circle of folk. I'm not going to bother naming it. But now there's, I think, 2 children. We have 44 cases in Australia. There's something extraordinary about this again. Now, my religious folk, my friends, are saying it's all a pestilence for, the hatred towards that group. That they're always going to cry that out. But one thing is that concerns me, not about the monkeypox. And that is, if we become more and more immune to this and it becomes just like the flu, which it isn't yet, but if it does, then those countries that have attempted eradication and haven't come along the journey with us, they're going to be at a disadvantage with their closed border. And I think that might actually lead to some strife.
I can see that.
The other flip side of the coin, of course, is that we don't end up with an immunity. The virus becomes so horrific that, what you really want in a virus, we spoke about this 2 years ago, Mickey, was the ultimate virus takes a very long time to kill the host, but eventually does.
Yep.
And in the meantime, it's super contagious. You don't know you've got it. You're all out amongst each other. Yep. And then suddenly, and that's the end. Yep. So killing your host too quickly is bad for a virus.
Yes.
And
that's, you've just described multi-drug-resistant tuberculosis. It's really
that's right. Yeah.
But you're right, though. That's exactly what if you were to engineer like a virus and you're looking to weaponize it and then use it in warfare or whatever.
It had some tick boxes on the selection criteria for it.
Completely.
Yeah.
And Dave just described them to a T. And that's what we're seeing here. Very much, in fact, I should think. But ultimately, we will just come to we will come to live with it. I don't know how that sounds, but we will, and we will just accept, like we've accepted all the other things.
Yeah.
A restriction of freedom, restriction of movement.
I remember those
health
days.
procedures. I mean, we all take our shoes off now, aren't we? We all take
That's
our shoes off, right?
Yep.
Is that normal? Is that what people do?
But coming into the country now, you've got to take your shoes off.
And you got to get them washed in some kind of acid
and you
bath
need the sticky mats and everything now.
Yeah, all that, my friend. No, that's where we are. That's where we now live. That's our hood.
The natural, Mickey, path that would take to its extreme is that we just don't travel outside of the country.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
And we don't allow people in. I'm not saying we specifically close the borders for that intention, but rather to protect ourselves from all of the bad things that are unprotectable from.
See, but as soon as that happens, it's game over, right?
It is.
Because once you go down that path, there's no coming back from it. Once you submit to that kind of control, it's all over.
That takes me back.
Yeah.
So,
right?
look, I know we don't have very much time. left. We've got 15 minutes or
Oh,
thereabouts.
jeez, that's right.
So-
there's this. Go on.
No, the European heat wave.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that
yeah.
a little bit because it is such an interesting topic. There's this report I'm going to share with everybody. And let me just dig up the article here. Give me a second. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay, so in Australia, we have an institute called Heat Watch. It's essentially an organization that was put together to, well, look at what happens with the heat waves in Australia, right? And globally, we have now seen, so Britain has experienced its highest temperature on record.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme conditions and fires are sweeping in Spain, Portugal, France, Greece, North Africa, Morocco, right? And we also recorded record temperatures at both the South and the North Pole.
Yeah.
Right, which included temperatures that were above 40, up to 40 degrees Celsius above normal.
That's
in
right.
the Antarctic, and in the Arctic, 30 degrees Celsius above normal. Now, still cold there, don't get me wrong, right? But these are, I mean, again, I think I mentioned this before when I mentioned it. If that were to happen in Great Britain, for example, we would have temperatures of around 60 degrees.
That's death.
Right? Now, yeah, that's right. Also, heat waves, India, Pakistan,
Yeah.
where temperatures hit 50 degrees Celsius. Also, India, again, all of South Asia, as well as China. China is now sweltering. The US is obviously experiencing massive heat waves. And the funny thing, in the Northern Hemisphere, where they're not really used to these heat waves, the infrastructure is more prone to failure than elsewhere. I'll give you a simple example. When I was a child, we had tar or asphalt on the street, as you do. It's a different kind of asphalt, though, to the one we have in Australia, because when it hit like 32, 33 degrees Celsius,
It would get sticky.
it would start, it would melt.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? It would melt, and you walk across the street and go on the footpath again, which is concrete. You'd leave black footprints. So
And you'd have spots of tar on the bottom of your feet. That's right.
Completely.
I remember that as a kid as well. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine what happens at 40 degrees or 45 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but the thing is this, right? The Heat Watch Institute uses a CSIRO climate projection. So the CSIRO is our scientific, I guess, establishment here in Australia. It's like a big research or a think tank. Okay. Now they're using their projections to understand what happens or what will happen in Australia. Now, the projections use a range of climate models, right, which were selected by the CSIRO for their accuracy in predicting the temperature increases up to date, like up to this point. They model the number of days a year we can expect over certain temperatures, right, such as 35 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius, etc., and pretty much any location in Australia. But this is what's happening here. So what they're saying here, this is what the model is saying. In Western Sydney, which is our most populated area in Australia, we've got put 3-4 million people living here in the greater Sydney area. Days with temperatures over 35 degrees Celsius could almost double by 2030, okay? And they could triple by 2050 and increase almost fivefold by the end of the century. And that's going from a baseline of 8.6 days, right?
Crazy.
So we're going from 8 days to 16 days to 40 days, and then then it just goes up the yin yang, right? Now, but these are so we got 2030, 2050, and then end of the century. Okay, and it's a similar picture for temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius. Now, but this is the thing now, everybody. So these are CSIRO projections, right? These are the models we look at to see what will happen in the future. And this is the highest scientific authority in Australia, if you will.
That's true.
Reality, as I've said, and I keep saying, and I know people don't listen, and whatever. What does Mackie know? He's not a meteorologist. I've always said this: the models are completely wrong.
They're flawed.
It is
yes.
The reality is outstripping the CSIRO projections.
And it has been.
Penrith.
It's been rising faster than all the models.
Correct. Now, let's look at Penrith, right? Penrith is the foot of the Blue Mountains. It's about as far west as you can go without actually going into the Blue Mountains, right? It's about 50 clicks from Sydney. Thereabouts.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Now, over the past 20 years, Penrith experienced an average of 13 days over 35 degrees Celsius a year, right? An average. But it has suffered more than 40 days over 35 degrees Celsius in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah.
In trend terms, this is already worse than the CSIRO model projected that would be reached in 2050.
Yeah.
The situation gets worse the further north you go in Australia, right? Broome.
Mm-hmm.
It's projected to face almost 300 days a year over 25 degrees Celsius, right? And the bad thing there is that you couple that with humidity, and it just becomes a really unpleasant place to live, in which, potentially quite deadly consequences. But we need to understand that the models that are being used today that everybody talks about are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to reach this in 2050. We are here today.
That's right. That's right.
Now.
Yeah.
Right
so Meki, right. My friends live in the NT. They live in Darwin. And their summer temperatures used to peak out at 32, maybe 33 degrees. And that's it. Now they're 35 degrees, 36 degrees. Mm-hmm. Now this trend is it's very slight because it's equatorial, but that's what they're seeing as now a consequence. And when you look at the history, when you look at the data, you just go, well, that's kind of a linear. It's very, very, you've got to compress it down from 150 years worth of data down to to make it really compressed to see an angle on that line. But when you do, you notice the line is going up, and it's going up more significantly now than it did at the beginning of the measurements. And when you're talking about a 10-year average, well, it's difficult to see that there was an increase. But when you look annually at the numbers, you can see them starting to rise quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
If that temperature, 40 degrees, for instance, happened at the poles above the current, which it did, but if it broke 0, which is the freezing point of water in Celsius, if it was higher than that and got to 10 degrees or 12 degrees, it would be catastrophic.
Yes.
That change in melt. And once you get to 10 degrees, 12 degrees, or whatever, there is no more ice at the poles. And, if you've got, land at sea level, good luck. Mm-hmm. One of the things, Meki, that I wanted to point out here, because we've only got a few minutes, one is thousands evacuate in floods in the far east of Russia. Mm-hmm. Russian floods. So we've got floods everywhere. We've got Thailand, Nigeria, Niger, the US, we've got the Sudan, China, Afghanistan. All of these floods, all of these locations are flooding right now. Mm-hmm. And there was one place in Russia that had 82 mil in an hour, and they also had a tornado in Russia. Remember, China didn't have tornadoes up until I think it was 2 years ago, and now they've got tornadoes.
Yeah.
And it just makes me wonder, what will it be like once we hit a certain temperature threshold? Since, America was Tornado Alley, and we've had a couple in Australia only a couple. But will it be the norm?
Yeah, it won't be good. I'll wager. Not okay. Prognosis, not good.
Not good. Well, that makes me happy now. So every time you run your air conditioner, you're taking the hot air out of your house and putting it into the hotter air outside. You actually increase the external temperature.
Yeah.
You're just moving heat around. You're not really cooling the inside. You're cooling it by removing the heat. And when you do thermodynamics, you understand what you're actually doing. And that's why I did this one thing when I was a school kid. I said, where there's shade, there's life. I wrote a story about that. And it didn't get a good review, Meki, remember, because I'm always wrong.
Of course.
Yeah. And it's now a thing. Where there is shade, there is life. Where every flat area that you can see, you can only imagine that was once either underwater or part of a floodplain. And the floodplains are becoming flooded more and more often. Will we need to buy back people's properties that live on these areas? What is the longevity of farming?
Well, look. I think we're coming to a point where, like I said, I mean, not just our political system, but life as we know it has to be fundamentally different. It has to change completely to what it used to be. We cannot. Our life is now over, as we've known it for the last 50 years. It's finished. Okay. And
climate stability is what got us to civilizations.
Yeah, no, that's right. We've been living through an extremely stable climate for a number of for probably a couple of thousand years.
That's right.
Maybe longer. And yeah, you're right. We just no longer we're no longer in that space. We're just not in that space anymore. It's just not. Yeah, we are. We have to deal with what's. And the thing is this: we can no longer stop it, and that's really the point that we're trying to make here. You can't stop it anymore. It is now something that we need to deal with, and we have to somehow live with, and be comfortable with to some extent, I guess, right? Because it is now life. This is where we are. This is our thing now. We it is just, well, it's reality now. It's where we are.
So, all of those who think climate change isn't real, well, then I find it hard for you to explain why it's getting hotter. That's fine. For all of the food losses now across the planet, especially through Europe now and all the fires, and through America and the fires, they're talking about the cost of food becoming unreasonably expensive because of shortage in market demand. So I wonder what the true picture is, because they were touting that this was going to happen before it happened. Worldwide food shortages. So what little can you survive on?
Well, that's an excellent question.
I did that Syrian refugee thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, don't get much food, but at least you stay alive.
That's something, right? That's something. At least we're alive, everybody.
Yeah. So, well, barely alive. So, if you work out what you actually need, you do need to eat. Doesn't matter what you're eating, but a lot of carbs and very little protein usually will get you through. But and that's what I learned. Even though my normal diet would normally be filled with carbs, I've swapped it now, so it's mostly protein. It's something that I need to do for myself. But thinking about where we're at, where we're going, who's in control, who's got their hands on the levers to make all of this better, and why the sudden increase in interest rates.
Yeah.
If we're all notionally poorer than we've ever been, and you're blind to the actual reason why fuel has been increasing the transportation cost of food, and that therefore the food goes up. If you can't see that and you're one of the elite, there's seriously something wrong with you. But it must have been directed to go up regardless of what the cause was.
That'd be easy.
Oh my goodness. Doesn't it go fast? Look, we're only going to have a short break, and we're going to get into a great meaty topic as a retrospective, and we'll see you shortly, just about 2 minutes, 3 minutes.